Rachael Cusick is a radio producer and writer based on this wet rock called Earth. She approaches the world with a mix of joy, vulnerability, and mischief. She is currently a producer at Radiolab, and in that role she visited the crab room in my old house in Lockport, New York, to capture the audio used in this feature. It was late November, and we had been exchanging crab puns during their long drive. "It's going to be crabulous," she texted. "We'll definitely have to celebrate." Right then, I knew I liked her. Rachael and her sound engineer finally arrived at my door late that evening after car trouble, and a long, fuzzy microphone was immediately thrust under my chin as we said hello. That was approximately the time that the hot flashes and hives began, but Rachael turned out to be delightful and charming, and the conversation flowed. She was also lucky enough to visit during a breeding attempt, and together we witnessed one captive-bred baby hermit crab climb the ramp, struggling to walk in a heavy shell that was roughly the size of a large grain of sand, to breathe air for the first time. Today, I adore Rachael even more and am proud to call her friend and fellow crab lover. Please welcome Rachael Cusick.
All the waters, folks. Ice cold water for $1. Best deal on the boardwalk.
If you've ever stepped foot on an American boardwalk, you've likely encountered a deep-fried Oreo, a roller coaster your surprise still functions, and maybe even a hermit crab. The first time I saw a hermit crab, I was 11, spending the weekend with my grandpa in Atlantic City. The crab was a boardwalk souvenir tucked inside a shell, painted to look like SpongeBob SquarePants. I didn't know then that that hermit crab wasn't born on a boardwalk or in a pet store or a lab. He was snatched from the wild, likely from Indonesia or Central America, and given a one-way ticket to the armpit of New Jersey. Virtually every single hermit crab you've ever seen has been stolen from its home in this way. And that's because no one has figured out how to mass breed hermit crabs in captivity. Not even biologist Chris Tudge.
I think I could probably honestly say I've done more work on the reproductive biology of hermit crabs than anybody else pretty much ever.
Now, hermit crabs are elusive creatures. They change sex and color and even the shells they call home.
They pass through multiple stages and change their shape and their size, and the environmental conditions you need for them are really quite specific.
I first read about all of this in a science article by Samantha Edmonds in The Outline. She says hermit crabs are hard to study, even harder to breed. A few people tried to reproduce them, but none could crack the code of breeding them in large numbers. Partially because we didn't care enough about them to learn. They're not tasty, they're not cute. No one saw enough value in them. But then Mary came along.
They say scaly is the new fluffy. Says that. I don't know.
Mary Akers is an artist who fell into hermit crabs a few years back when her last kid left for college.
When I became an empty nester, my 3 kids had graduated, I said, now I can do what I want to do, right? I was going through menopause. It was kind of like, get rid of all that estrogen. I'm 12 again.
Mary needed hobbies. She started doing pottery again, and one day a woman in her group said she was looking to offload a hermit crab after her kid lost interest.
And I was immediately like, oh, could I? Do I? Will I? I hesitated more because of my husband. And I didn't confess to him right away that I said yes. I said, we're going to crab sit while they go on vacation.
Eventually, she came clean to her husband, said she wanted the crab to stay for good. But she quickly realized she didn't know much about how to care for her new pet.
And I Googled, and I was like, oh my gosh, they need friends, they need more room, they need sand, they need real food.
She learned they can live for decades if cared for properly. And when she realized her own hermit crab was stolen from its home, she felt a profound sense of injustice.
Any other creature that lives 50 years, we think of elephants, we think of whales, we think of even the great tortoises, right? We revere, but we don't do that with hermit crabs. They are literally throwaway pets.
These cracks in our world that most of us skip over or never see at all, they suck Mary in. Mary is the child of an alcoholic father, the sister of someone with mental illness, and a nurturing mother of 3. She spent her entire life caring for others, hoping she could protect them if she just loved them hard enough. Now, in these hermit crabs, Mary found a new space for her love to fill. So Mary went out and bought more hermit crabs, put them in a tank the size of a grand piano, and declared them the new tenants of her daughter's old bedroom.
What is that called? Oh, the crabs are in their crabitat.
Things escalated. Mary watched them run on a hamster wheel for hours. She'd share her leftovers with them and then give them popcorn as a midnight snack. She even named each crab Artemis, Garbo, Lola, then started learning what made them tick.
I've noticed that some of them have personalities where they like either the blingier shells, and I have one that likes a green shell pretty much all the time. Sometimes I know, he's gonna love that shell.
Then one day, Mary saw one of her crabs walking funny.
And I got my little flashlight and I shone it in there what is that in your what? Do you have a growth? Do you have a tumor? What is that? Well, it was eggs in her shell. And I was like, oh yeah, baby.
That summer, Mary's crabitat morphed into a laboratory, one dedicated to delivering these eggs into crabhood, and one that was a daily construction of love. She built a series of pools so the pregnant crab could pick which water she liked best to release her eggs into. Once the eggs hatched, Mary used a turkey baster to swap out the dirty water the crabs swam around in, changing the metaphorical diaper of thousands of baby crabs. All along the way, Mary lingered above her crabitat, cooing to the babies.
And these little guys, I think about it sometimes, have been seeing my big moon face, hovering over them, staring at them. What do they think? Am I the landscape of their life?
Mary would have a few good days, but then the number of babies would plummet. The crab's struggles, their needs, they consumed Mary.
What am I not giving them, right? That's the recurring refrain in my head. What do they need? What am I not giving them?
She wanted to smooth out every speed bump life put in their way. Still, the number of babies continued to drop until there were none left.
I got to the final stage. That's the closest they get to being a land hermit crab before they're a land hermit crab.
She felt gutted, but not wholly defeated, because the next summer, when one of her crabs waddled with eggs yet again, she got back to work.
I had a plan. I had a lot more things I wanted to try.
She built a new kind of tank, grew a different seaweed, bought better foods. She even built a ramp inside one of her tanks to simulate a hermit crab's journey from the ocean onto dry land. But far more radically, Mary did something she really, really does not like to do.
I had to figure out how to not care so much. I can't be God, I can't be God, I don't want to be God, right? But I can be the ocean. I can be the ocean.
That phrase, be the ocean, it became Mary's companion through all this.
A little mantra, which sometimes I recite.
Every time she found herself wanting to rescue the hermit crabs from some amorphous potential harm,
The ocean.
Mary would imagine the vast waters that raise hermit crabs, how these microscopic specks manage to float around in the maelstrom and make it out the other side.
So I would actually agitate them more and move it around and give them like a low tide and a high tide. Today I'm the ocean, and today the ocean is dirty and mean.
Eventually, the babies grew. They survived major milestones, they formed limbs, and then flew through the water like Superman. And then, one day, Mary watched a single hermit crab pull its body up onto the staircase and break through the border between water and land.
I cried, I wept. I wanted a soundtrack playing.
Meanwhile, more crabs kept coming. Mary took out a piece of paper and began making a tally mark for each crab that made it to land.
And then by like day 5, it's the March of the Penguins, right? I'm like, oh God, okay, there's another one.
By the end of the summer, Mary had added 204 new hermit crabs to the world. With a turkey baster and tender loving care, Mary accomplished the impossible. It's been 5 years since that first hermit crab climbed out of the water in Mary's crabitat. Each year, she breeds a new batch. Some years, she reaches up to 700 crabs. She's bred so many hermit crabs that now she adopts them out, making sure they go to responsible homes. Learning about all of this, I wondered why it was Mary who could figure out this thing and scientists couldn't. It was the question Chris Tudge asked himself too. Remember Chris? He's the guy who should have figured out what Mary did but couldn't. Late one night, he found himself reading Mary's blog where she'd been documenting her entire breeding process.
And by the end of it, my first impression was, oh my God, she actually did it.
The thing Chris found most impressive was Mary's ability to be the ocean.
It's just stunning. You know, you have to keep the waste levels down, you have to keep the oxygen up, the light levels have to be right. The ocean's a constantly changing entity. And here she was reproducing the ocean in little tiny bowls.
Why is it so hard to recreate? Like, what about it is hard to copy?
The chaos. In the same piece of ocean, there's millions of other species who are trying to do the same thing that need slightly different conditions. So the chaos is benefiting everybody a little bit.
That turbulence Mary originally resisted, it's the very thing Chris said the crabs needed to survive. I like to think these hermit crabs gave Mary the chaos she needed to survive, too.
I could literally all day, every day, do nothing but try to get it perfect. But that's not best for the crabs. That's definitely not best for me. So it's a balance of how much do I allow myself to feel responsible.
If you share your life with another creature, a hermit crab, a human, I think this is the maddening fact we're faced with every day, that our love can only do so much.
You're not responsible for everyone. You're not responsible for saving everyone. I wanted to save my dad. I can't save my dad. I was a kid, you know? My kids, letting go. Like, life for me, my lesson has always been just let go, Mary. Let them be crabs.
Thank you.